Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video we're going to learn the two-player game, Caper Europe, designed by Unai Rubio and published by Keymaster Games, who helped sponsor this video. You were all set to be the greatest criminal mastermind in Europe, but then a rival showed up with fancy gadgets, disguises, and an eye on stealing some of the most sought-after valuables. Now your reputation's at stake, and there's no time to waste. So join me at the table, and let's learn how to play. To set up, place this game board between you and your rival mastermind. Then set these 10 coin tokens nearby to form the supply. Now find the cards that make up the core location, gear, and thief decks as indicated on their backs, and just set these aside for a moment. Then pick one of these 4 city decks to use. They each have a level of difficulty, which is based on the number of stars that you see here, and for your first game, they recommend using this blue Paris deck. Flip this top city card over. It has reminders of special rules for icons you'll encounter in the game when this deck is used, which we'll be covering in this video, so we can just set this aside for now. The rest of the cards in the Paris deck are made up of more location, thief, and gear cards. We now shuffle these smaller decks into the related larger core decks that we had set aside earlier, and in this way, when you play, you'll have unique decks based on which city you've chosen to play in. At the end of a game, you'll want to remove all city-specific cards from the core decks in order to reset things, and you can identify these city cards because they'll show the city's related icon on their face in the corner here. So these are 3 city-specific cards, and these are 3 core cards. Now set the Thieves deck face down here, with the Gear deck in the space beside it. From the Locations deck, deal 1 card face up into each of these spaces of the board. The rest of the deck won't be used, so we can return these to the box. Next, collect these stolen goods tokens and flip them all face down and give them a good mix. You then reveal and place 4 randomly into each of the spaces found beside each of the location cards so that it looks something like this when you're done. Beside each of the locations, you'll find one of these caper tracks, and on the center space of each one, you'll set one of these caper trackers. Finally, set this round marker onto the intro space of the round track here. And that's the setup. In Caper Europe, you'll be sending your gang of thieves to locations and equipping them with gear, all in the hopes of controlling the locations that you visit, stealing precious goods, and using your various special abilities to gain points. In the end, the player with the most points will be crowned the ultimate mastermind. The game is played over 6 rounds, and each round begins at the round track. First, look at the space the round marker is currently on. The symbol beside it tells you which type of round this will be. A white symbol, like we see here, means it will be a thief round. A green symbol means it would be a gear round. But no matter which type of round it is, the number of dots you see is how many cards each player will draw from that colored deck. So during this first thief round, we draw 4 cards for each of the players from this deck. And then later, when it's the second round, we draw 6 gear cards from the green deck for each player. But for now, since we're on this first round, each player would draw 4 cards. And the arrow of the round's icon will also point towards the player who will go first during each turn of the current round. The number of cards that the players are holding will determine how many turns will make up that round. Starting with the first player, they'll play and resolve 1 card from their hand, and we'll see how cards are resolved in a moment. Then their opponent plays a card. After, the players exchange the cards that they're left holding, and then again, the first player plays a card from their new hand, and then the second player does as well. Then they exchange cards again, and back and forth it goes like this, with players each playing a card in turn order and then exchanging hands. Now, when they're each finally passed 2 cards, and have played one of them. So first player first, second player after. Then instead of exchanging their remaining cards, they instead place the card they're holding face up into their personal discard piles, which are located by the X on their side of the board. And since the players are no longer holding any cards, the round now ends. You now advance the round marker 1 space and deal players the number of cards from the deck indicated by the symbol of the new round, paying attention to who will be the new start player. In this case, the player seated on this side of the board. This new round would be played just like the last one, except now you're playing 1 gear card each, and then you're exchanging hands, playing another card, exchanging again, and so on. And rounds will continue like this until you get to the end of this final round. Here, the game ends and you determine the final scores. With that understood, now let's look at the rounds in more detail, going back to the beginning of the game where you start with a thief round. And on your turn here, you'll follow 3 steps. First, you play a thief card from your hand, placing it on your side of the board at one of the 3 locations. Each location has slots for 3 different thieves indicated by these 3 triangle icons. Over the course of the game, you'll add new thieves to any empty remaining spaces of any location you like. But once the 3 slots of a location have been filled, no more thieves can be placed there. They'll have to be placed somewhere else. I'll also mention that the order that thieves are placed within a location makes no difference. Anytime you play a thief, check to see if it has a value here, and then collect that number of coins from the supply. There are only 10 coins in the game, and if you ever need to collect coins and there are none in the supply, you take the remaining that you are owed from your opponent one at a time. But as soon as you have an equal or greater number of coins than them, you stop taking more, even if you gained fewer than what you were owed. This is easiest to explain with an example. Let's say that I have 3 coins, there's 1 left in the supply, and my opponent has 6. If I play a card that would give me 4 coins, I'd first take this remaining one, and I'm still owed 3 more. I don't have coins equal or more than my opponent, so I would take one from my opponent and check again. Now we're tied for coins, so I must stop. I don't get any more of the coins I was owed. This balancing of the coins between you and your opponent is only enforced when the supply has run out. If there are coins in the supply, you can always take as many from there that you're owed. It doesn't matter how many coins you have and how many your opponent has. Okay, so when playing a thief card, you add it to a location, then collect any coins showing on it here, and then resolve any effects it triggers. For example, this saint shows this icon, and that means as soon as she's played, you resolve it. When resolving this symbol on a card you've played, you move the caper tracker at that card's location 1 space towards you. Now, if this marker ever has no more spaces to move, then it just stays where it is. There are other symbols you'll encounter, and we'll go over them, but to understand them, we should first explain how you resolve a turn during a gear round. To help illustrate this, I'll assume the players have already fully resolved their first thief round of the game and have drawn a hand of gear cards. On your turn in a gear round, select any card you're holding and then pay the cost in coins showing here back to the supply. You then place that gear on any thief you have in play that has an open slot, and each thief can hold a maximum of 3 cards. And as you play cards on top of each other, ensure that the top banner of any cards underneath are still visible. Then, after the gear is placed, resolve any icons that are triggered. For example, this is the symbol for coins, so after playing this plasma cutter, the player would then collect 4 coins from the supply. In addition to resolving any of the icons on the card that was just played, you also check to see if any other thief or location effects are triggered by this. Now, we're going to talk about all the various icons and how they interact with each other in a moment. But I should also mention, on your turn during a gear round, instead of playing a card, you can choose to discard a gear card from your hand in order to gain a coin. Before moving on, something else I'll point out is that every thief and gear card belongs to a colored set based on the color shown in the background of its top banner. All thieves have this cream color, while gear comes in a variety of colors, and this will be important later, as we'll see. Okay, we now know enough to start learning about all the icons you may come across, so let's dive in. Earlier we saw that resolving this icon moves the caper tracker 1 space towards you at the location where that thief is played. So this barber showing 2 of those symbols would move it 2 spaces. Now the kernel is different. It has a similar icon with a twist. This symbol means that you move the caper token 1 space for every purple card you have at the kernel's location. And you count all of the gear and thieves at a location as working together as a single crew. This means their icons will all interact with each other, meaning that when checking how many purple cards I have, I count any I find at that location on thieves or other gear cards I have. So in this case, I would count 1, 2, 3 purple cards and move the caper tracker that number of spaces. Just keep in mind, you only count the cards at that location. Purple cards that I have in crews at other locations do not contribute to the effects on the icons here. Also, these effects are ongoing. In other words, if I later add a purple card here, I would trigger this effect again and move the tracker another space. And don't forget this card I played also moves the caper tracker as well. Here's another series of icons you might see, and these show the same symbols you might find on goods tokens found at the various locations. When you play a card showing one of these, you take the related stolen good from that location and add it to your hideout, which is the area on your side of the board underneath of this H icon. Now, if there were no stolen goods matching the type shown on the card played at that location, you would just ignore this effect. And if the symbol shows an outline of a stolen good with a question mark, it means you get to take any type of stolen good from the location and add it to your hideout. Some cards you play will show this burn a card icon, and this will target a card on your opponent's side of the board. To resolve this effect, I would pick the topmost gear card on any opponent's thief at the same location, and then they must discard it. Then they revert any benefit that removed card had originally given them. Let's say I had targeted this gear. It shows 2 caper symbols. So after this is discarded, I would then move this token 2 spaces away from that player's side. Let's say instead I had burned a card showing coins. The opponent must then return the amount showing back to the supply. If they couldn't return the full amount, then they'd return as many as they could. Let's say instead I had targeted the card that shows this good symbol. After it's removed, they would return a matching token from their hideout back to that location. Now, if the symbol shows a question mark, as this one does, they would pick any type of good to return. And if they didn't have the type of good that was showing, they wouldn't return anything. Now, if the card that gets removed by a burn effect was contributing to the effect of another card, for example, if this purple card was targeted by a burn effect and removed, you do not revert the purple effect that it might have given to this card earlier in the game. I should mention there is no effect that comes from burning a card with a burn effect. And although we haven't discussed these star symbols yet, nothing happens when one of these are removed either. Remember, you can only burn the topmost gear card on a thief, never a card that's underneath another gear card or the thief itself. If an icon on a card at your location shows this burn protection symbol, it means all cards of that color type, blue in this case, cannot be targeted by burn effects played by your opponent at that location. And that covers all the symbols you might find, except for the ones that have stars on their icons, and these don't resolve until the end of the game, so we'll discuss them a little later. You'll often see a star icon on the location cards as well, and these also resolve at the end of the game. However, if a location has an icon with a shaded area, that's an effect that is always active. In other words, here at the bank, all yellow cards that are played have burn protection. Or here at Moulin Rouge, every blue card you play at this location moves the caper tracker 1 space towards your side of the board. I should also mention that if while playing you forget what an icon represents, the game comes with 2 of these handy player references showing all the icons and explaining how they work. And with that, we've covered everything you need to know to take turns and resolve the cards you play. But if you ever come across a card and you're uncertain of how it should work, you can also go to the link I'll have in the description of this video, which takes you to a website listing every card in the game, giving you even more details. Okay, so the game will now continue with players completing rounds one after the other, until players have discarded their final card at the end of the 6th round. At that point, it's time to calculate the final scores using the included score sheet, going through each listed item starting with the symbol for scoring locations. One by one, you'll go to each location and check the caper tracker. If it's in the very center of its track, then no player scores any points for that location, and you can move to the next one. On the other hand, if it's on one of the spaces closer to one of the player's sides, that player is said to have won that location. So a marker here, here, or here would be a win for this player, and they'd collect any points that location provides. Victory points are shown with a star, and you first score the points showing here at the top of the location, 5 in this case. Then you check for any scoring icons, which will also show a star. This icon provides you with the star points shown on its bottom banner for each card you have at that location matching its color. Unless otherwise stated, the player scoring the location only scores points for the cards on their side at that location. So here this player would earn 1, 2, 3 points for their 3 green cards. Just a reminder, if you see this color, it represents thieves. So this scores you 2 points for each thief you have at its location. A scoring symbol like this earns a point for every stolen good in your hideout that matches its symbol. So if we had these 2 tokens, we'd score 2 points. In addition to the points you score for winning the location, if your caper tracker is on this or this space, you earn the stars showing beside the marker. So 1 point for being here and 2 points for being here. Once the locations have been scored, each player now scores their thieves. This works in a similar way, except now you go one by one through each thief you have at a location and score any star icons that they show. The Madame, for example, would score 1 point for every blue bannered card at her location. Here's a new scoring icon we haven't seen yet. This thief scores you 2 points for every 2 cards at its location, which are made up of a green card and a card of any color. So if we had this combination, we'd score 2 points for this green card and this card of any color, and another 2 points for this green card and this card of any color, which just also happens to be green. Here's the gentleman, and this thief scores you 4 points for every set of green, purple, and yellow you have. Just keep in mind, although you can count the same card for each scoring icon you have, you can't count the same card more than once per icon. In other words, I could use this green card when creating a pair for this icon, but I couldn't use it again to create a second pair for the same icon. But I could use it again when creating a set of 3 for this separate icon. Gear has many of the same types of potential scoring icons that we've seen already, but here's a new one. This simply means it scores you a single point. Finally, it's time to score for the stolen goods you've collected. Here, you arrange your tokens into the largest sets possible that have unique symbols, but you can't use the same token in more than one set. Here, I have a set of 3 unique symbols, a set of 2 unique, and a leftover good on its own. Each set of 3 is worth 9 points. Each set of 2 is worth 5, and a single token is worth 2 points. You'll find a reminder of the scoring for stolen goods here on your player reference. With your scores recorded, you now total them, and the player with the most points wins. In the case of a tie, the tied player with the most coins wins. And if there's still a tie, the tied player with the most stolen goods wins. And if there's still a tie, you share the victory. For now, but should try to break the tie in a future game. Now don't forget, the next time you play, you can remove any of the previous city cards you played and mix in one of the other sets, providing new locations, thieves, and gear. Each of these other cities have their own custom rules, which you'll find detailed here at the back of the rule book, but those I'll leave for you to discover on your own. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Caper Europe. If you have any questions at all about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.